Greetings and welcome. This is the ThaBadbrey Herbal, ancient astrologer of the ThaBadbreyHerbal.co.uk. And today I'm going to be speaking to you about how I was able to help a fellow astrologer to locate his missing passport. So as I said, this is the ThaBadbrey Herbal of the ThaBadbreyHerbal.co.uk. So, sometime last year, around August last year, I was on Facebook browsing, as you do, and looking at updates. And a friend of a friend messaged me, and she said that a fellow astrologer who happened to be her friend had misplaced his passport and was having some trouble locating where it was. He knew it was in his house somewhere, but he didn't know where it was in his house. So, being a fellow astrologer like myself, a fellow student of astrology, he decided to erect a horary chart to try to locate the missing passport. However, after looking at the symbolism upon the horary chart itself, as well as due to the fact that the passport being lost and the chart being generated as a result of the passport being lost was his own horary chart, there was something taking place which usually takes place with astrologers if you cast your own chart. If you have an emotional attachment to the outcome of the horary chart, then that usually interferes with your ability to delineate it accurately. So, because this fellow astrologer had an emotional attachment to finding the passport and did not want to have to find some other means of getting a new passport, i.e. paying for a new passport financially, and some other financial implications that would be involved in getting a new passport, it was interfering with his ability to delineate the chart. And I've been there myself. I completely understand that. So, what happened is I was requested to come in to help delineate the horary chart, which was erected to help this fellow astrologer locate his missing passport. So, shout goes out to Optiks Hamilton, another fellow student of astrology like myself. And he managed to find his missing passport in the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you exactly how I was able to do it. So let's get down to this. Right. So as you can see, this is the passport, missing passport rather, horary chart. As you can see, name, horary. Where's my passport? Tuesday, the day of Mars, on the 8th of August 2017 at 1600 hours and 5 minutes. Okay, 4:05 p.m. in London, UK. All right. Now this is the chart that was cast. Now, immediately I looked at this chart, and what do? You apply the 4 rules. If you have been following these videos on lost objects and lost horaries and how to locate lost objects, missing people, missing animals, missing pets, you will be familiar with the 4 rules that you used in order to find out and create some type of picturesque understanding of where the missing item could be. The first thing we do is we look at the ground it lies upon. In order to find out the ground it lies upon, you look at the 4th house. This proportion over here is the 4th house, and this line here is the cusp of the 4th house. As you can see, the 4th house is on Aries. Aries is ruled by Mars, and in this particular chart, Mars is over here in Leo, combusted by the sun. All right. So again, Aries points to the direction of east as well as some type of heat source. All right. And the ruler of Aries, i.e. the lord of Aries, being Mars, and Mars being over here in Leo, and being combusted by the Lord of Leo, which is the Sun, the Heavenly Father, straight away I came to the conclusion that this fellow astrologer was overlooking something, all right? That he had likely put the passport somewhere next to towards the east direction, but he was overlooking it as a result of dwelling upon the fact that there may be some type of disadvantageous financial implication that could result as a result of not finding the passport. Why did I come to that conclusion? Because the ground it lies upon is Aries, and the lord of the fourth house cusp being Mars, and Mars being combusted by the sun, indicating money being burnt up, as well as Mars being combusted by the sun in the eighth house, which is symbolic of other people's money. That told me that he's thinking of, he doesn't want to have to spend more money. He's got some other financial implications that are attached to not finding the passport, and as a result of it, he was overlooking where the passport actually was. All right. And I also came to the conclusion that wherever the passport was and wherever he was standing when he was overlooking it, when he was pondering about where the passport could be, would have been in an area towards the east direction that had some type of green items. Why green items? Or green pieces of technology? Or green decorations of some kind? Because the eighth house in ancient Horary astrology is symbolic of the color green. All right. Also, based upon this, I came to the conclusion that this passport would have been towards the east in an upper room of the house. Why in the upper room of the house? Because as you can see here, the sun, who is combusting Mars, and Mars being symbolic of the ground that the lost passport grounds upon, the ground that the lost passport lies upon, and the sun sharing the combustion of Mars, as well as combusting the north node, the dragon's head. Now, in ancient astrology, the dragon's head always, in lost horary charts, indicates the top of a stairs or the top of a ladder. Or if you come into somebody's house and you see a stairs almost adjacent and directly in front of where the door is, and the stairs leads upstairs to upper rooms or upper parts of the house, the bottom of the stairs corresponds to the south node or the dragon's tail, whereas the north node corresponds to the dragon's head. So because the ground it lies upon being Mars, and Mars is combusted by the sun, and the sun is in the eighth house, as well as being in the position where he's able to combust the dragon's head, I came to the conclusion that it's in the upper room of the house towards the east. Okay. Now, the next thing that we look at is the house which rules over the object that has been lost. All right. In this case, a passport. As I've covered before, a passport is in charge of allowing someone to travel. All right. Get on an airplane, get on a bus in some areas of the world. When people ask you for ID, it's because you are being asked for ID because you are trying to either cross a border or travel somewhere on foot, yeah, on a bike, on some type of mode of transport. And the third house represents communication of any kind, and in order to communicate with the outside world, you need to first go through your door and go outside and get on some type of public transport. The public, the only way to get in contact with the public face to face is to be outside taking some type of short trip. The third house rules short trips as well as communication. All right. So the third house rules cars. The third house rules bikes, buses, keys, passports, bus passes, train tickets is all ruled by the third house. So therefore, what we are seeing here is the third house. This proportion here is the third house. And the cusp of the third house, as you can see, is right on the water bearer, Aquarius. And again, Aquarius points to an upper rim of the house. All right. The ruler, the lord of the third house, cusp, being traditionally ruled by Saturn. Traditionally, Aquarius is ruled by Saturn. You look to the lord of this sign, and the lord of this sign is Saturn, and Saturn is over here, right in the first house and a retrograde. Again, because the ascendant represents the person asking the question. And Saturn is right in the first house, which represents the person asking the question. This tells me straight away that there was some type of memory lapse and the person has forgotten where they have put the passport as a result of something that took place earlier. Perhaps they rearranged the room, then forgot where they actually put the passport, because Saturn is retrograde, all right? As well as Saturn always corresponding with some type of memory lapse, especially when Our Lady the Moon has just separated from him, all right? And then we look to the Lord of the place in which Saturn is. Before we get onto that, the first house also represents the color of white, all right? So we've got the color green and we've got the color white. So some type of papers in the upstairs room next to something green. Now, due to the fact that Saturn is in Sagittarius and Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter also represents the querent, the fellow astrologer who was asking the question, then we come to the conclusion that Jupiter is inside the 10th house of work. So therefore, after seeing this, I came to the conclusion that this person most likely had moved the passport in an upper room of the house, rearranged it next to some type of shelf. Why? Because Libra represents the upper room of a house, and because Libra is an air sign, this sign here, Libra, is an air sign, then that represents that they would have moved the passport from some place that was likely a shelf or a storage area, and after rearranging it, they may have forgotten about it. But when they were rearranging it, they had a very good reason as to why they were moving it. Perhaps there was too much stuff on the desk, there was not enough space for the passport, and they decided to move it. Now, why did I come to that conclusion? The reason why is because Jupiter is in Libra, which is the exaltation of Saturn. And if you're trying to create more structure, then you bring the energies of Saturn in to create more structure in a place that is overcrowded, because Jupiter expands any part of the chart where it is. So in some type of upper room of the house, next to some type of shelf, next to something light red or pinkish, because the 10th house represents something light red or pinkish, all right? There was too much things on the desk, and as a result, he decided to move the passport, or the passport dropped and fell down, all right? Now, the reason why I come to the conclusion that the passport may have dropped and fallen down is because Jupiter is in Libra, i.e. some type of shelf, yeah? And Jupiter being in Libra is also making a sextile with the sun. And because Libra is the fall of the sun, and due to the fact that I reverse reception when I'm looking at a chart that's within a certain context, I would say Jupiter receives the sun, i.e. the person overlooking where the passport is. Jupiter, the rearrangement of the room, receives the sun into fall. So therefore, that is synonymous with the passport actually dropping or being moved to a lower place in the room, near a place of work, next to something reddish, as well as something green, as well as something that is white, likely some type of paperwork or documents, all right? Now, then I look to the Lord of the place in which Jupiter is, which is Venus. And as you can see here, Venus is right over here in Cancer. Now, because Cancer rules anything that is to do with a room that has running water, I came to the conclusion that there may be a bathroom nearby or some type of room that has running water that's next to the room in which the passport has been misplaced. Now, the fact that Venus in this particular chart was in Cancer and sextiling Mercury, and the fact that Mercury is in Virgo and Virgo is the fall of Venus, that gave me another testimony that the passport had fallen to the ground level or had been moved to the ground level. Now, as Mercury is a natural, universal significator of passports in general, and the fact that we had zeroed in on the fact that Jupiter is reverse receiving the sun into fall, and the sun representing the person overlooking the passport, and the ruler of Jupiter being Venus, and Venus making a sextile with Mercury, and Mercury being the fall of Venus, I came to the conclusion that all of these planets around here is the area of the chart where the passport would actually be. All right. Now, there's a tug of war going on here, as you can see. There's a tug of war going on all around Mercury. All right. So before I even get into that, the next thing we do is we look at the moon. All right. The third thing we do is look at the moon. As you can see in this particular chart, the moon is in the third house, which we already covered. And because the moon, our lady, the moon, how fast was she moving on that particular day? She was moving below average speed. She doth move slow. Because the moon was moving below average speed and also being in the third house and being in Aquarius, and Aquarius being ruled by Saturn, and Saturn being ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter being ruled by Venus, which is in fall in the place where Mercury actually is, and Jupiter being in the fall of the sun. I came to the same conclusion. We need to look at this area of the chart. Then the next thing we do is look at the part of fortune. Now, the part of fortune is right over here in Gemini, and Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is right over here in Virgo. Again, points to Mercury once again. So this is what we do. This is another visualization that you can actually use. As you can see here, this is the same chart. There's a tug of war going on between, let me draw this, let's see. Between this planet here, Jupiter, which represents the person asking the question. They are quite angry because, as you can see, this fixed star Antares is almost conjunct the ascendant. So this person is like, I'm agitated, it's getting on my nerves, I can't find the passport, what's going on? Yeah. So they're in their place of work where the shelf was before, and they can't find the passport where they thought they had actually put it. And then Jupiter reverse receiving the sun into fall. As you can see here, if you look at this diagram I'm drawing here, there's a tug of war going on between the person's thoughts, thinking, I don't want to spend money, and Jupiter reverse receiving the sun into fall. And this tug of war, the center of gravity between this tug of war is right here. All right. This is the center of gravity of this tug of war, right in the place where Mercury is. And Mercury being the universal significator of passports means that the place of Mercury is the place where you need to look in the room where the passport is. All right. The next thing we look at is this. Venus, again, is part of this tug of war as well. But because Mercury is in a place which is the fall of Venus, then again, the center of gravity becomes where Mercury actually is. So we need to look to where Mercury is. And then the part of fortune being ruled by Gemini, and Gemini being ruled by Mercury, and Mercury being over here, tells you again that we need to look in this area of the house. The ninth house is representative of a person's room, a place where they have papers. Now, this, to me, gave me concrete conclusion that the passport is in an upper part of the room, and that it had been rearranged and had likely fallen to ground level next to something green, because the ninth house symbolizes the color green as well as next to something that could be red, as well as next to something that could be white in color, i.e. papers. So papers on the table that are white in color, maybe some filing documents that are also green, and then something else that is red that is next to it. All right. Okay. Those four things. Let's go back. All right. This is a relatively long video because I'm giving you all the detail of how to find a lost object. All right. With the techniques that the ancients used. The next thing, all right, that you look at is the last planet that Our Lady the Moon had separated from, all right, to paint the picture as to what has happened in the past and what will likely occur in the future, all right. So based upon what I saw, the response that I gave to him, Optiks, fellow astrologer, Optiks Hamilton, is I said, I looked at the moon and I saw that the moon last separated from Jupiter 8 degrees ago. All right. As you can see here, this is the degrees of the moon, 26 degrees. And the moon last separated from Jupiter 8 degrees ago. All right. Now, when the moon has separated from, if somebody's lost something and the last planet that the moon separated from was Jupiter, that usually means that they rearranged where they usually keep the lost item. Now, before, so I thought they may have rearranged it, but before the moon actually separated from Jupiter, the moon was in Aquarius and making an opposition to the sun. And because the moon, our lady the moon, she was in Aquarius, making opposition to the sun, and Aquarius being the detriment of the sun, this painted a picture for me, because the moon made an opposition to the sun, then separated from the sun, translated the virtue of the sun over to Jupiter, then translated that virtue of the sun again, because Jupiter couldn't do anything with the sun, and translated it over to Saturn, and then the last planet that the moon separated from was Saturn, i.e. memory lapse. I came to the conclusion that this is what took place. The person put, i.e. the fellow astrologer, he was in his room and he thought to himself he needs to rearrange where he's storing the passport. So he decided to rearrange his room, i.e. synonymous with the symbolic separation of the moon from an opposition with the sun, and translating that virtue over to Jupiter. Okay, and Jupiter corresponds with the room being rearranged. Now, although this is the case, the rearrangement did not work out in the way that he wanted it to. Why? Because Jupiter is the fall of the sun. So when the moon translated the virtue of the sun over to Jupiter, Jupiter said, I can't do anything with this. There's too much stuff on the desk. I can't do anything. I can't do anything with this. I'm going to hand the virtue of the sun back to you, Mrs. Moon, because I can't do anything with this. So then instead, I can't do anything with this. So Jupiter handed the virtue of the sun back to the moon, and the moon said, okay, what can I do with this? So the moon, she translated the virtue of the sun over to Saturn, who's retrograde. And after that, she separated from Saturn, and Saturn corresponds with a memory lapse of some kind. So as a result, the person rearranged their room, moved the passport to on top of a desk somewhere, and then they decided to rearrange it again. And when they rearranged it, they moved it to the ground level. All right. Why did they move it to the ground level? Because that's what they were thinking of. Jupiter represents the person asking the question, and Jupiter is in a sign ruled by Venus, and Venus is making a sextile to Mercury, and Mercury is the universal significator of the passport, and Mercury is reverse receiving Venus into fall, and Virgo is representative of the ground level. All right, the direction that the passport was found in, was lying in this particular chart, is the direction of southwest by south. Why? Because Virgo represents the direction of southwest by south. Another way we can find out exactly what direction the passport can be found in is as follows. All right. Now, in these charts, if you're looking at it from an astronomical standpoint, all right, the IC, yeah, the nadir, represents the direction of north, all right? The ascendant represents the direction of east, all right? And the midheaven represents the direction of south. And the descendant represents the direction of west, all right? So, based upon the direction where the universal significator of the passport actually is, and the planet that we need to look at, which is gathering all of the attention of all the other planets that the person's overlooking, we come to the conclusion, based upon this astronomical symbolism alone, that Mercury is somewhere towards the southwest by south area of the person's room. And Virgo also is synonymous with southwest by south. All right? Now, in order to find out exactly how high up or low down the passport is being stored, we give recourse to another technique. All right, so let's go back. This is another technique that you can use. All right, now as we know that this direction over here is southwest by south, yeah, what you do is you draw a line. This central part of the chart, which represents the earth, also represents the center of the person's room, ninth house synonymous with their room. Whereas the edge of the chart represents the edge of the person's room. So you draw a line from the center all the way across towards where Mercury actually is. And then you split this line into two. All right. Hold on. You split this line into two, yeah? There you go. Now, after splitting this line into two, you draw a line, a circle, representative of the ecliptic, okay? This is representative of the ecliptic, i.e. the zodiacal band, yeah? Of the apparent path of the sun. Now, after you've done that, you come to the conclusion, this is the center of the person's room, and this is the edge of the person's room, and this is the ecliptic, and Mercury is at ground level somewhere, and you want to know whether or not Mercury is low down, or in the middle, or how close to the ground level he can be found, as well as how close to the edge or to the center of the room he can be. In order to find that out, you need to give recourse to the actual ecliptic latitude of Mercury at the time the chart was actually cast, yeah? In order to look at the ecliptic latitude and come to any viable conclusion, you need to know what the maximum ecliptic latitude of Mercury is and the minimum ecliptic latitude is. Mercury's most northern ecliptic latitude is 3 degrees and 33 minutes. And his most southern ecliptic latitude is 3 degrees and 35 minutes. In this particular chart, you can see that Mercury was at 3 degrees and 8 minutes, all right? So he's more or less all the way to the southern part of his ecliptic latitude, all right? So based upon that, we come back to here again. If the planet is southern in its ecliptic latitude, then it's closer to the edge of the room. And if the planet is northern in its ecliptic latitude, it is closer, much closer to the center of the room. And due to the fact that in this chart Mercury is closer to he's in his southern ecliptic latitude, you come to the conclusion that Mercury is lying about here in the room towards the southwest by south, next to some type of shelf, next to the edge of the room. Now, how high up he is, you look at the declination. The declination is different from the ecliptic latitude, all right? The ecliptic latitude is how high above or below, northern or southern, of the ecliptic equator the planet is, whereas the declination tells you how high north or southern of the celestial equator the planet actually is. In this particular chart, as you can see, Mercury is 4 degrees north in declination, all right? So therefore, I came to the conclusion that the passport will be found in a lower shelf towards southwest by south, near the ground level, near the edge of the room, next to something green, where there will be papers nearby, all right? I also came to the conclusion that he would find it, all right, within the next 2 days or so. Why? Because Our Lady the Moon was moving towards Uranus in 2 degrees. You can see this is the Moon, 26 degrees, and Uranus 28 degrees, which symbolizes some type of unexpected understanding of where the passport could actually be. On top of this, when I looked at the ephemeris, I saw that Our Lady the Moon was actually going to make an opposition with Mercury in the next 2 days or so, all right? As you can see here, at least by Wednesday, Thursday time, all right? And on top of this, that she was going to enter, she was going to enter into Pisces in the next 4 days or so. All right. So I said to him, "You're likely going to find it." Let me show you exactly what I said. Let's see, where are we? I said, as was mentioned in the relation. Sorry. I said, this indicates that around 8 weeks ago you may have rearranged things relating to or within a place of work or even within something that is used for work. However, you may have only noticed that the passport was missing about 4 weeks ago. Why? Because the moon separated from Jupiter 8 degrees ago and separated from Saturn, i.e. the memory lapse, 4 weeks ago, or 4 degrees ago, roughly. I said, as a result of this rearrangement, it's likely that the passport itself may have been moved from its usual place but ended up falling to the ground level and is now being completely overlooked as a result. It's likely to be found at ground level in the direction of southwest by south, next to and or obscured by something green and red in color. You should find the passport within the next 2 days or so, if not in the next 2 weeks. All right. And then, within 2 days, the fellow astrologer Optiks Hamilton, he got back to me and he said, "I can't express my gratitude enough. You're 100% accurate. What impressed me the most is how you worked out that I had rearranged where I put my passport from its usual place and moved it to the bottom shelf of my desk. All right. And it was found in the southwest direction, next to a radiator, at ground level. Respect, sir. Thank you." So there you go. That's how you can use ancient Horary astrology to locate missing pets, missing objects, and missing people. This is the ThaBadbrey Herbalist SR, ancient astrologer of the ThaBadbreyHerbal.co.uk. Stay tuned. Dendera.